Hello and welcome to your GDPR in Schools training session for DP staff. We're going to begin by looking at the customer success team contact details, and this is who you contact if you have any questions at all about your GDPRIS portal. Okay, so the purpose of this training session is to make you feel really confident and comfortable in using your portal. And what we're going to do is take it right back to basics from the moment that you actually log in. So you log in for the first time, and as you can see, we have this nice colourful dashboard. And this is your visual overview of the work as you complete it. But to be frank, it probably won't make a lot of sense until we actually start to go through a few bits and bobs. So we're going to come back to this a little later. And what we're going to focus on instead then is this black navigation pane down the left-hand side. Now you can access all of the various parts of your portal, all the different tasks from this pane. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through these bits and bobs in the order in which you're going to be doing the work. So our first two places to go are nice and quick. So we start with the school profile page. Now this is just the information that we are holding about your school, and it's a question of just going through and making sure that things are in the right place. So particularly, you want to make sure that you as the main school contact have your details in here. Sometimes you may find it's actually the head teacher's details, so you'll need to change those. You also need to make sure that you've written your ICO registration number in here. If you're not too sure how to find that, if you give the customer success team a call or email us, we can help you with that. And lastly, in terms of information, you've got your DPO name. Now this is really important. It's actually a legal requirement that you have registered your DPO with the Information Commissioner's Office, unless of course you're an independent school. Now the last thing to do from this page is just to personalise your portal. So grab the logo for your school, save it onto your desktop. And I'm going to show you how to put it on here. Now it's very simple. It works in the same way as if you were attaching something to an email. So I've clicked on open. I then select my document. I click open and then I click save. And you'll see it populates just here and at the top left-hand corner of the navigation pane. Now, just to explain what we're looking at today, this is not a real school. Okay, this is a mock school, so any details that you're seeing, we're not in breach of the GDPR. Okay, so what we're going to look at next then is the account settings page. And this is really, you just come here in order to change your password. You can see again, nice and simple. You would just put in your old password, write a new one, rewrite it and click save. And just to explain that anybody that you give an account to within the school will have their own account settings page. Okay, it isn't just one for the school, it's one per individual user. And talking of users, we're now going to start to look at the kind of people that you might want to put onto the system and the level of access that you want to give to them. So as you can see, on this mock school, I've got various staff and they fall under two separate types of access. So we've got the school DP staff, and that's people such as yourself. So that's DP leads, DPOs, people that are assisting in the administration of GDPR within the school. And everybody else we call general staff, and they have a much more limited access to the portal. Now, there are various reasons for adding all of your general staff, and we're going to talk about that kind of as we go through today's training. But what I'm going to talk you through now is how to create your users. Okay, now there are a couple of ways of doing this. The first is importing the information from a spreadsheet. So we can provide you with this spreadsheet, and you can see all you need to do is pop in the first and last names of each member of staff, their email address, and then repeat that. And then if you want them to have this elevated level of access, such as yourself, you'll just put a little X in this final column. And then all you need to do is to click on Import from Spreadsheet, and that will create all the different user accounts. Now, we also have another way of doing this, and this is a relatively new thing. We've been working closely with one of our partners, Group Call, and they've developed a piece of software that will do a direct integration from your management information system straight into GDPRiS. Okay, so it's called XOD. If you think, yeah, that's something that would be really useful for us, if you can contact our customer success team, just let us know the name of your school, and then what we can do is we can enable that within your GDPRiS portal. So let's imagine we've done one of the two things. We've either imported or we've done the integration. What happens next is then it'll produce a list of all of your users, and next to each there'll be this little black box. That is the activation box. Now, you don't want to activate them as soon as you generate them. A couple of good reasons for this. There's a couple of tasks to do first, but also you don't want to activate them yet because you're going to need to explain a little bit about GDPR and warn them that they're going to receive an email. Because once you activate them, an email will be sent to each member of staff, and it'll have a link to get onto the portal and a one-time use password. And what you don't obviously want is anyone to delete that. Okay, so hang on, don't activate them just yet. So you've got your list of users in. The next job to do then, we're going to categorize these users. So if I take you into this one, this little pencil mark next to each user, and I open that up, new pop-up will appear. If I go to the middle of this pop-up under select category, and I click, I get a list then of all of the various jobs that that person might be doing within school. And I just need then to click all of the relevant labels. Okay, now this is the reason you're doing this. This is really important for when you come to look at suppliers, which will be the next focus of our training today. Now, this is a manual job, but like I say, it is going to save you a lot of time later. So you'll do that for each of your users. Then once you're happy, once you've completed that and you've done some work on suppliers, then you're ready to activate them. To activate, you just click in the top left hand side, this little black box at the top, and that'll place a tick against everybody that you want to activate. And you just click Activate Selected Users, and that will generate that email to them. Okay. Now, there's one last little thing to mention. Anybody that you've given this elevated access to, this DP staff level, they also need what we call the verification code. Okay, so top right hand corner of this page, that is a code that is unique to your school. It never changes, and without it, your DP staff won't be able to get in for the first time. It's just a raised level of access, of security. Okay, so we're going to leave users there for a second, and we're going to now take our attention to suppliers. Okay, so these are your third-party suppliers with whom you're sharing personal data. And what we do is we click on suppliers, and you can see we have 3 tabs. This first tab enables us to just do a search by either the name of the supplier or the name of the product that you've purchased. Let me just do this now. I'm just going to type in Hampshire. Okay, so we've got about 3,500 national suppliers in this database. As you can see, look, this is one that I did earlier, and it's grey because I've already selected it. So this is kind of a record of which ones I've done already. So let's now find one that I haven't done. So I've typed in Capita. There we go. Now the black ones mean I can select these. These are available for me to select. And I'm going to select Unit E, for example. Okay. Ignore that. That's just because I've selected it on a previous training session. Now you can see I've selected the ones that I want, and I can do more than one system at a time, more than one product at a time. When I'm happy with, I want to select those, I click on Add Selected. A pop-up will come up to say, do I really want to add them on? Yes, I do. I'm going to click on OK. And you can see now that they have turned grey. Okay, so the ones that you select turn grey once you've subscribed. The black ones mean you could subscribe if you use that particular product. So what we're going to do next then is to look at the data maps for these suppliers. Just going to click on the middle tab, the Manage Suppliers tab. And you can see I can search by supplier. So let's just search for one. I don't know, let's search for Hampshire again. could learn how to spell, that'd be great. Okie doke. So Hampshire County Council, this is my LA, and I want to review the information that I send to that particular supplier. So I click on review, a new pop-up will appear. Now this is the data map. This is all of the information that this supplier could take from my school. And what you need to do is to look down the left-hand side at all of these field names and just check that they are correct. Now, 99.9% of the time, you will give all of the information that the supplier requests. However, we are hearing of some schools actually that do withhold some information. So if this applies to you, let's imagine you withhold gender. That's quite a common one. So what you would do is you would just scroll down until you find gender and you would deselect. So you're just deselecting any of the fields that are not relevant, okay? And then we would click save. There we go. Now, let me just talk you through what this data map is actually showing you then. These are the field names. This is the purpose for this particular supplier to collect that information. Under what legal grounds? We then have where they're taking the information from, who the data controller and processor are. And we have various different headings. We've got all the legal grounds. I'm just going to scroll down so I can move across. There we go. Okay, just go back up again. There we go. So we've got retention, being informed, right of access, etc. Okay, just to explain, PD is personal data. SC would be special category. Okay, so these maps are quite extensive, as you can see. All of the work's been done. All you need to do then is just to check that the information in the left-hand side is correct for you. Okay, just going to come out of this box now. There we go. Okay, now you may sometimes find, if I just show you this, that there'll be the opportunity to update a data map. So as we can see here, I know for a fact that spag.com is one of my curriculum tools. They've just updated their privacy policy, therefore there's a new data map. So it says the word yes here, meaning yes, I can update it. To do that, I would just click on review and we get this nice red box. And you can see this is the information that used to be in it. This is the information that it wants to put in instead. And all I need to do then is just to click accept update. Okay, and then I click save. Done. Just to take you out of this page for a second so that you know if you do have any updates to your data maps. If you go to your dashboard, there we go, and we're looking at this tile here which is about suppliers. This is showing me that I have 24 suppliers in the system and I've selected 75 products. But you can see this is the key bit. 16 of my suppliers or products have updated their data maps, or we have updated it for them. Okay, and so that I know which ones are which, go into suppliers, back into manage. Now, rather than searching this time, this is all of my suppliers, and you can see just by looking down, if I've got any ones with the word yes in there, these would be ones that I would then need to review and save. Now, you can also see I've got a few that say undo remove. Now, this is on a previous session. I have removed it. Let's imagine that I didn't use Capture Advantage anymore. So I want to remove that. A notice comes up. Do I really want to remove? Yes, I do. But if you're anything like me and you've clicked the wrong button at any point, this undo remove will remain there for 24 hours. So if you accidentally remove a supplier that you don't use anymore, in the future this is, then that undo remove does stay there to enable you to undo that. Okay? So we've talked about selecting suppliers. We've talked about how we look at the data maps and how we upload any new or amended data maps. There is now a little task to do. And this involves your users again. So the first thing we're going to think about is owners. And owners, this would be the person that in the event of there being a breach that you would have to notify the ICO about, they're going to want to speak to somebody in school that either manages that system, so it could be the network manager, or the person that uses that system the most. So that's maybe a curriculum subject lead. Okay, and we just click on add owner and we pop in their name and their email address. Now this isn't mandatory. Okay, if you really don't want to put owners in, that's fine. It will automatically put in your head teacher's name. Okay, Now, this is the important bit. This is where you're adding your users. So for each member of staff that you've created a user account for, so every member of staff that can access personal data, whether it's staff or whether it's students, that's why you've put them on there. You're now going to say which of these different suppliers or different systems they've got access to. So if I take this top one, for example, I've got to build a profile by Too Simple Limited. I click on Add Users, and it's just a question of selecting all of the members of staff that use that product. Now you can see the minute I clicked on Add, it gave me all of my staff. Now this is why you categorized them earlier. This is the time-saving bit, okay? Rather than looking through every single member of staff, if I just type in teachers, for example, it's going to reduce that list to only the people that are relevant, and I just tick their boxes and click Save, okay? Now the reason you're doing this is about transparency, okay? You are trying to ensure that you have a list of suppliers that is accurate, and by telling your staff these are the systems that we believe you've got access to, when they log in, I'm just going to show you what they see, okay? They log in, they come to suppliers, and now they can see the different suppliers that you're saying they've got access to and the different products that they can use. Now, I'm an ex-teacher, and before the GDPR, I could have had accounts with all kinds of different people, and I could have been sharing information, and actually my school business manager probably would never have known what I was doing. But under the GDPR, we have to create this level of transparency. So the member of staff, they look at this, and if there's something missing, if they have an account with something like Kahoot, for example, or something, what they can then do is they can notify you. So they press this button, okay, and they just pop in. Actually, could you also add Kahoot or whatever different account is that they've created? Okay, so this is a way of you finding out about any suppliers that you don't have registered. Okay, and then of course you can then go in and add them via suppliers and select. So it's just making sure you've got a really accurate record. And it also, it reminds your staff actually that the responsibility for data protection, it isn't just lying with one person in school. Okay, it's everybody. Everybody has a responsibility. Okay, so that's everything to do with our national suppliers. Now, if you do have a supplier that isn't listed on our database, fear not. If you just drop us an email to the customer success team, and what we'll do is we will then investigate the compliance documentation for that supplier, and if it's really clear what information they're taking, under what legal basis, etc., we will then add them to our supplier list, let you know, and then you can subscribe to that supplier. Okay. Now we get these requests every day, so it's not a problem at all, and we're happy to do that for you. So we've talked about these national and regional level suppliers, but obviously you're going to have perhaps these little suppliers that are local to you that all offer a really specific niche kind of service. So perhaps it could be a taxi firm that transports your SEND students, something like that, or a photographer. Now, you're not going to find them under the big suppliers database, okay, unless they're national or regional level. The little local ones, you're going to create an account within this yourself. So this is how we do it. We click on My Systems, we click on Add New System, and all you need to do is just to write in the name of the company in here. So let's do Bob Jones CCTV. Oh, that's creative. Under category, I then select the service that this particular supplier provides me with. Much easier way of, rather than scrolling, just to type a few words. So I'm going to put CCTV, see if anything comes up. Oh, yes, that's brilliant. And then, as you can see, it's created Bob at the bottom. If I scroll down, there we go. Bob's now there. Now, what we can do is we can provide you with a blank data map that you would then give this third-party supplier and ask them to complete. And we've also got some packs for you to give to these suppliers to help them to do that. Okay, but the onus is on the supplier to provide you with that information. It isn't that you yourself would need to generate a data map. Okay, you ask them for that information. Now you can see, if we just look through my list of systems that I've already created in previous trainings, it isn't just suppliers that I've got on this list. I've also got internal systems or internal ways of working. So this is a really good place for you within the portal to record things like your archive HR records, return to work forms, anything that where you are processing personal data. You need just to make a list of it and where you are locating that data. So where do you store that data? For example, okay, under HR records, okay, when I created it, let's have a wee look. Oh no, let's add a new one, might be easier. Okay, so let's put in, this is going to be trips and visits. Okay, and I'm just going to put underneath that, it's a professional service that I am doing, right? Now you can see under delivery, I need to make a choice about where actually do I store that data. Is it on like a spreadsheet and it's saved on my server? Is it saved on G Drive? Is it on a website? Is it even in a locked cupboard? And I can do that. I can just put literally SEND cupboard. Brilliant. Okay, I'm just keeping a record of what information, why I do this and where I keep it. Okay, and I can create that. Okay. So when you do receive data maps from your third-party suppliers, you just click on import and it pops it into here for you. Okay. Now that's everything to do with suppliers. And we're now going to move on to thinking about an internal audit. So I'm back on my navigation pane. I'm going to click on internal audit. Now this, if you like, is where it's your opportunity to stop the clocks. And you're going to be reviewing your own internal policies and procedures, thinking about like the training that you give to your staff, thinking about risk assessment. It's just where you just take into account how you are managing data protection. And it's recommended, according to the legislation, this must be done regularly. Quite frankly, how you interpret the word regularly is completely up to you. Okay, most schools are doing this once or twice a year. So I'm just going to show you first of all, once we create the internal audit, it will generate 3 separate tasks. Okay, one that is done by all of your general staff and yourselves. Okay, the other 2 which are completed just by you as DP leads and DPOs. Okay, now just to explain then, before we can actually begin to do our internal audit, we need to set it up. Okay, so this part of your portal is actually locked until you click on actions and you put some dates in. Okay, so I go into actions, I go into settings, and I need to make some decisions about times of the year and about frequency. So you can see this page is divided into 2 sections. We've got these organisation questions. These are the tasks that you as the DP staff will be completing. And then we've got the personal or individual questions that everybody within school completes. Okay. Like I said, most schools are doing this part once a year and are doing the organisation once or twice. It is completely at your discretion. To make that choice about frequency, you just hover into this box here, and you can see a little arrow will appear. And you can select to do this up to once every half term or once a year. You then, by clicking in the left clicking in the from and to boxes, produces a little drop down. Okay, and you just click in the dates that you want your audits to run. Okay, now one thing we would say, once you click save, you can't come back in and amend these dates. Okay, once you've put the dates in, those dates are sacrosanct. Okay, if you got to say, let's imagine I get to the 30th of the 8th this year and I haven't completed my audit, too bad. I've got to wait till the 31st of August has passed, and then I would create a new audit. All of the information I've already put in is retained, okay? But if I was to change these dates mid-audit, there is a very slim chance I might lose things, okay? We don't want that to happen. So that's why once you put your dates in, you click save, you don't amend them. Now, just to warn you, we've got a really, really cool inbuilt make a cup of coffee moment, because you click save and it takes about 5 minutes to unlock that part of your portal. So an ideal time, make a cup of tea. Right, so as you can see, my audit is already running. So my internal audit bar will open. There we go. So new navigation pane, 3 tasks, as I said, and we're going to start by looking at the one that everybody in school does. And this is, if you like, a bit of a way of ensuring that all of your staff understand GDPR and that they're really trying hard to live to the principles of GDPR. So if I show you what I mean by that. These individual questions, it's 14 questions broken down into 2 sections. Everybody in school undertakes these questions. They take about 10 minutes to complete. Okay, so it's not rocket science. It's not difficult for anybody. So your member of staff logs in, they come to internal audit, and they will just see this. If I take you back in to look at my general member of staff, look, let's just show you that's all he can see. And he clicks on the top one, School Data Protection Questionnaire. Now these first questions, this first set of 12, is all about day-to-day procedures, day-to-day ways of working. And really, we want staff to almost see these as like a checklist of things they should be doing. And it's really important that we get staff to answer these accurately and honestly. Yeah, if they don't do something, it's much more useful to you to find out that they're not doing it, because then you can give them some extra support rather than them trying to claim that they're doing everything as they should be. Okay, so honesty is the key here. Now, these questions all have the same format. So they have a question. They then have this little eye here. This is a bit of a prompt explaining what is expected of that question. And in this first section, then, all they need to do is to select an answer from the drop down. And it's questions like, do you keep your passwords secure? Do you lock your computers when you're away from your desk? The one I think is really good. Do you position computer screens away from windows or doors so that your screens can't be read? It's little things like that that are really important. Okay, so they just click on yes or no, whatever. And then once they're happy with all of their answers, they click on Save as Completed. Once they've done that, they won't be able to come back in and edit their answers. Okay, so if they're concerned about something, they want to come back and edit, they would save as current progress. And then once they're happy with everything, then they'd save as completed. Okay, so they've done the first 12. The last 2 questions are about training. So again, we've got the question and prompt, but this time, not only do they need to say that yes, they've had some training, they also need to use this little triangle and enter some free text, because they need to enter what training they've actually had. As an absolute bare minimum, they need to have read the school's privacy policy. Okay, so, and also perhaps they've watched some of our videos, but as an absolute minimum, they must have read the school privacy policy. So they would write that in there. Hopefully they can then put a date as to when they completed that. And then my favourite question of all, you've done the training, did you understand it? And fingers crossed they say yes. Okay, same again, they can save current progress or save as completed once they're happy. Okay, so we've looked then at what work is undertaken by your general staff. Now we're going to look at the work that you as the DP staff will be doing. So the first part of your role is the data mapping review. And this is where you are thinking about the compliance of your suppliers. Okay, so you can see what I've just done then. I clicked on Start Review. It's now given me a list of all of my suppliers. And what I need to do then is I just click on Begin Review for each one. The first thing I'm going to see again is the data map. Okay, but you've looked at this obviously when you were selecting them under suppliers earlier. And just to say, if you have a supplier that has more than one product, they'll be listed here, and then you will just click on the appropriate one and it will change the view to the relevant data map. Okay, so I click on Next because I've looked at the data map. What you can now see then, this is the contact information for that particular company, and these are their compliance documents. And now, although we as a company, we have sourced these documents and we've read these documents, legally, no one other than you at the school can make the decision that it is okay, that it's safe to share data. Okay, so what you would need to do is we would recommend you have a little look through the privacy policy, and then you click Accept. Now, by accepting, you are just making a note for yourself that yes, you accept that they are GDPR compliant and that you want to continue to work with them for the foreseeable future until you next do a review. Okay, that's all that the word accept means. But just to reiterate, we have sourced this information for you, but you have to make the final decision yourself by clicking accept. Excuse me. So that doesn't take too long at all. Once you've done your data mapping review, you're then ready to do, this is the main bulk of the work that you'll be doing, okay, is the school questions. Now, as you can see, it's divided into 6 parts. Just go into the first one. Now, just to explain, the good thing about this particular part of the portal is this is a collaborative task. So it's not envisaged that there'll just be one person in school that will do the entire audit for everything. Quite frankly, it would take you quite a while to do that. Okay, what schools are doing is they're breaking up these sections, or they're finding the people in school that are best placed to answer them. For example, we've got one section about operation. You're going to need a network manager or somebody with a technical background to answer it. And what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to see what each of you are writing in this report. So it isn't that each of you are producing separate reports. Collaboratively, you are producing one audit. And it's this audit that legally you have to present to your governors or your board of trustees at least once per year. Okay, so just to show you then, in the same way as with the general staff questions, we have a question and we have a prompt and we have the drop down. But unlike these earlier ones, these school questions do require you to enter some text. Okay, so yes, you're going to do the multiple choice, but you'll also be entering a little bit of text. And now these answers, as you can see, these are mock answers that I've put in. It's not an essay. It's not War and Peace by any means. Okay, you're just being asked to evidence your answer. So what the DFE and the ICO are requesting is it's something like, if you have an answer to one of these questions within your privacy policy, for example, you would literally put refer to school privacy policy. Okay, so this is not reinventing the wheel. It's just declaring where in other places you could find these answers. Okay, so this first section then, the role of the school, this is about contextualizing your school and thinking about what kind of school are you? Okay, so this might be, are you an academy? Are you primary, secondary, associated with the diocese, etc.? Okay, 5 little questions there about contextual matters. We then move on to leadership. Okay, a few more questions in this section. Now, this is mainly concerned with thinking about the types of policy you may already have written. So have you got privacy policy? Do you have risk assessment policy? It's that kind of thing. And it's also asking you, have you appointed a DPO and what kind of training have they had? Okay, so that's what that section is all about. In the next one, we're concerned with risk assessment. So this is all about your DPIAs. Have you undertaken some risk assessment? Have you found any gaps at all? It's just asking you to review that in these 9 questions. The school-wide support section is all about your general staff. So how are you ensuring that on a day-to-day basis, people aren't doing things like using memory sticks, that they're not leaving, the register on the board when they take a register for everyone to see. It's how are you managing their expectations and their understanding of the GDPR. We then go into operation, and this is the section that I was referring to when I said about your network manager or someone with a technical background. This is all about your infrastructure. So this is your servers, your laptops, that kind of thing. Okay, your telephones. How is that all maintained and kept safe? Okay. And the last one is exactly as it says on the tin. It's reviews. So what have you already identified as being a target area before the next time you come to review everything? Okay. So you've put all of this information in. I'm now going to show you how you can then extract all of these answers into a report form that you can give to your governors. So we come back to our main navigation pane and we go to reports. Okay, I'm going to talk you through the various reports in just a sec. I'm first of all going to show you how these reports actually work. So you can search within the reports, just type in here. If you want to work on screen, you want to reorder information. Let's imagine I want to reorder this by the first name of my users. I just grab that column heading and drag it upwards and drop it. As you can see, it reorders it. Okay, and to get back to the original view, I would just click and drag that down and go. Okay. Now, this bit here is the important bit. This is where you are going to export that data. It exports into a CSV file that you can then open up in Excel. And I can export by either the whole report, so everything, or I can just look at individual rows. Okay, so we're just going to now look at what are these reports, what do they do? This first one then is just a list of all of the members of staff that have accounts and who has completed what in terms of their 14 data protection questions. So as you can see, I've just hovered above the pagination numbers. This gives me my scroll, and if I go to the right hand side, for each member of staff that has completed those questions, there'll be 2 entries. It says they've done their 12 day-to-day questions and they've done their 2 training. Okay, those that haven't done it yet, 1 single entry with a little hyphen under status. Okay. In the next report, I can see the people's answers to those questions. So as we know from looking a second ago, I've only got Rainey that's actually done it. But if I go across, I can see the questions and I can see her answers to each of those. Okay. Under suppliers and systems, this is a list of all of the suppliers and products that you've subscribed to. So it's really worth, once you've got your list of suppliers before you start to select them within the system, then once you've done all that, print this off and compare them just to make sure that you've got everything listed. Okay. Now the full data map is huge. This is the data map for every single supplier and product that you have subscribed to. So if you wanted to download, let's say you just wanted the 2 simple to build a profile, I can do a little search. It has a little think about it. There we go. To build a profile. And what I can then do, let's go back over to the right hand side. I'm just going to select those particular rows. There we go. And I can export that. And then I've got a copy of that particular data map. Okay. Now, the other useful thing to do with this particular report, if you wanted to do some comparison supplier against supplier, let's imagine you wanted to look at all of those that use consent as a legal basis, this report would enable you to do that. Okay. Supplier review. This is literally all of the suppliers and under your internal audit, which ones that you have already accepted. Okay, so let me just bring up a list of all of them. And this shows me I've accepted these here. Look, I've done AQA, I've done 2 simple, and I haven't reviewed these yet. Breaches, exactly as you would expect. We're going to talk through breaches a little later, but this is where I can download all of the different breaches that have been reported on my system. Okay. Now the biggie, this is the one that's really important, the all SAQ responses, so all self-assessment questions. This is all of those questions that you as DP staff answered, all of those 6 sections. This is where you pull down the report then. Okay, that's the export button and you would go export all data. Okay, so that's reports dealt with. What we're going to look at now is an area called documents and training. And this is where you can store everything GDPR related. So as you can see, I've clicked from the navigation pane and we have 2 areas here. You've got a folder that's actually named after your school. And that's, as you open it, that's the one that automatically opens in this panel here. And as you can see, I've got all kinds of things I've uploaded. I've got my data protection policy. I've got the training, who attended a training session, anything relating to GDPR that you have created, pop it in here. Okay, this is your one-stop shop. It's your receptacle for everything that you have done. Maybe you've got copies of supplier contracts, scan them in, pop them up. Now there's 2 ways of creating a list of putting them on the system. You can either upload by going to browse and then selecting the particular document from your directory, or quite simply you can have your directory open and I could just drag and drop whatever it is that I want to put in here. Let's imagine I want to do that. pop it into there, and it does it for me. Now you can see I can also decide who within school I want to be able to access those documents. So I want all of my DP staff to be able to read and write, but actually I don't want the general staff to be able to see it. And I can do that and click OK. Okay. And that's how you upload. Now you've also got in there then the GDPRiS folder. And this is where you're going to come for anything relating to the portal or relating to GDPR in general. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let's imagine that after this session, you want to see a bit of an aid memoir. You want to see some guidance notes on what we've been talking about. So I would go into GDPRiS. I can then go into Guides for All Users. Now, you've got a bit of a decision to make. A quick guide, that's just an A4 piece of paper, and it's an iconograph of how to do things for each of the different sections on your navigation pane. Or if you're like me, you need it in a bit more detail, you can click on the user guides, and they are, again, they are ordered in accordance with this navigation pane, but these are step-by-step with screenshots, okay? Now, if you're anything like me and you need to look at things a bit more visually, what you can do, again, from the documents and training section, if you click on this hyperlink in the top right-hand corner, it takes you out to our website. Okay, and this is where exactly the same information that I've just been showing you, but it's a more visual way of getting to it. So if I want to look at DPIAs, I want to look at our different posters, it's all on there for you. Okay, perhaps you've got an ICO advisory visit coming up. We've got some case studies in there. And it's also worth keeping a little eye on this website because our CEO, she's very good at, she's constantly updating things, and she's looking at DPIs at the moment. So worth having a little look at that. Okay, so this information here is exactly the same as is listed on your documents and training. It's just a different way of organising and looking for it. Okay, so what we're now going to start thinking about then are breaches. I think this is probably the area that most people are a little bit worried about. So we're going to talk legally, first of all, I hope you don't mind, and we're going to think about actually what is a breach and what are the requirements from your side of things in terms of reporting it to the ICO. So a breach is anything where somebody who doesn't need access to personal data suddenly has access to personal data. And it can be from one extreme, such as you go to the photocopier, you lift up the lid and someone's left a register on the glass. That is a breach, because me as the person coming to the photocopier, it's not my class. I don't need to see that list of students and their parental contact details. Okay, so that would be what we call a breach that you would respond to internally. So you as the DP leads, the kind of action you might take is just to send maybe an email out to all staff saying, don't forget to check the glass after you leave, before you leave the photocopier. Done. Okay. Much more important, much more significant is a breach that affects either a large number of people or that affects special category data or vulnerable people, for example. So let's imagine that you've got a teacher planner, and in the back of it, it's got attainment data, it's got information about looked after children, and someone leaves it on the bus. Now, because you cannot control who's got access to that information, that would be the type of breach that you would report to the ICO. Okay. Now, if it is reportable to ICO, you have 72 hours from the moment of the discovery of that breach. Okay. Right, let me show you how to do that then. And now this is another reason for why we've created an account on GDPRiS for all of your staff. Okay, they don't need to go through you to log a breach. If they discover one, if they cause a breach, they can come straight on here and record it, and it'll then send you an email to say that that's been logged. Okay, so it's a nice, simple way of doing things. We come into breaches, we click on Add New. The date and time, we'll just hover over it. You can see that little grey calendar appears. And all you need to do is to click on Done. And it will populate the date and the time. And that time is starting to tick down. Okay, those 72 hours will begin. Now, I will advise you of something. When you come to log into your GDPRiS portal, you can play around. You can add suppliers and take them off. What you can't do though is you cannot remove any breaches once you've added them on, not even a test breach. Okay, so my little bit of advice is don't put any test breaches on. Okay, so I'm going to cancel. No, we're not. Let's do that again. Done. Now, my title is normally the actual physical thing that has been breached. So let's put in this example, we're going to put laptop stolen. Now, the summary description, this is where the member of staff puts as much information as they can possibly put in. We want context, where, what, how, and particularly what data has been breached. So, for example, I'm going to start by saying laptop stolen from inside my unlocked car. Oh dear, in the staff room. No, in the staff room, in the car park. Laptop contains unencrypted, oh dear, unencrypted information about all looked after children in year 7 and SEN students throughout the school. Now, clearly, this is the type of breach that would make your hair stand on end. Okay, we don't get many of these. Okay, now as soon as this member of staff clicks add, you will receive an email and it will come straight to you and it'll have a hyperlink to take you straight into the portal. Okay, so I'm just going to search for the word laptop so I can show you this. There we go. So this comes in and this is what you'll be able to see then. You can immediately see the information that's been added by the member of staff. And it's now your job to work your way through the various steps from acknowledging this particular breach right the way through to closing it off. Now, your DPO will help you with this because one of the accounts you're going to create when you set up your users, you're going to create an account for your DPO. Okay, they will advise you about the kind of action that you need to be taking with this. Okay, so the first one, every time you come into this ticket to explain, you need to move this status. So the first status you update is you're acknowledging it, and you would put something along the lines of have received this notification. Okay, you can see under this is the breach type. Well, we're just acknowledging it. We don't know if it's even a breach yet. So we leave that blank to start with and we click update. And this is, if you like, this is your paper trail. This is your audit trail of every comment you make. So I then come on, for example, I've maybe spoken to the member of staff and I can move this from acknowledged into investigating. So, and the comment I might put, for example, might be, have spoken to Mrs. Shepherd about the loss of the laptop. Oops, Daisy. Thankfully, this has been found in the staff room. Phew. Okay, so actually I can close this. Yeah, I can close it in a second, but I'm first of all going to write down, actually it wasn't even a breach. Nothing's happened, okay? It's a non-breach. Phew, and I can close it off. And that's the end of that process. Okay. Now, absolutely what we would recommend is to get the staff used to the idea of coming on and logging things, even if they think it isn't particularly significant. The reason being is if something big does happen, you don't want them umming and ahhing, oh crikey, how do I use this system? Get them used to coming on and reporting things. Now, certainly from the ICO's point of view, when they're coming out to do advisory visits and things, and they're looking at schools' breach records, if you've got an empty breach record, you've got literally no breaches at all. Actually, that's a bit of a red flag, because we're working with human beings. Everybody makes mistakes. They would much rather see a list of a few breaches that have been dealt with rather than a school saying, well, we've had no breaches, because that's highly unlikely. Okay, so get your staff on, get them used to the idea of reporting things. It's okay to report something and find that it's not a breach. That's not a problem. Okay, much better than that, than they don't report it and you get fined. Okay, so we're just going to end by going back to the very beginning and looking at this dashboard. Now that we've covered the whole portal, just to explain then what it is when you first log in. So you can see then, it's divided into the 4 different tiles, and we have any breaches that have been recorded. you can see, crikey, wasn't June a bad month? So this is showing you the different breaches. And rather than clicking on breaches, I can actually go straight to breaches from this panel. The same with each of these, okay? This one is showing you your internal audit. How many of your staff have completed that internal audit? So I've only got 4 staff and only one person's done it. 25% progress. This is showing me my questions, me as the DP staff member, how much have I done? Okay, and also this is showing me how many of those products have I actually reviewed, and I've done 40 out of 75 products. Okay, and of those sections that I've got to complete, or those questions, I've only done 1 so far. So this is just reminding me of how many days I have in order to complete all of that work. I can collapse that back. There we go. This part here, this is to do with your staff. This is how many people have got accounts and how many of them have actually logged in. So I've got 2 DP staff, none of them have logged in. I've got 2 general staff, they haven't logged in recently. Okay. And as we said before, this is your supplier slide tile. How many suppliers, how many products, and if any of them need you to update the data map. Now we're just going to go back to looking at that PowerPoint that we started with. Just to remind you, these are the contact details if you need anything at all GDPRIS related. Okay, please make use of those. And just to end today, I'm going to show you some useful links that you may want to have a little look at as well. Okay, so here we have what we call the knowledge base. This is, as I showed you earlier, where you can find your user guides and things, FAQs and stuff are logged there as well. Okay. This is the website I showed you earlier that has all of our GDPR resources, so DPIA, templates, that kind of thing. We were also instrumental in helping the DFE to complete their toolkit. And if you like, this is your step-by-step guide to how to manage GDPR. Really worth taking a little look at that. And as I promised earlier, if you haven't registered your DPO with the ICO, that's the link to do that. And just to end, just to explain that we are now offering our own DPO service. And if that is something you think you would like information about, if you can contact us using the contact details here, we'll be happy to give you some information about that. Thank you very much indeed for your time. If you have any questions in the future, please don't hesitate to get in contact. Thank you very much. Take care.